Okay, that's it. We're live. Cue Stu.
All right, so welcome to the first DDRC interview with Alex Hagberg. So welcome, Alex.
Thank you.
And we've got Andy on the call as well. So first, congratulations, Alex, 8 times European champion.
Thank you very much.
So how that must have felt. What we saw. So after the second final, we saw a very rare moment of emotion from you on the rostrum. We saw a bit of a fist pump coming off the rostrum, and I had a short interview with you afterwards as well. So just like how did that feel, knowing that you got your title back, so to speak? So.
It's just an incredible feeling, especially considering how much work has gone into trying to win this race and the build up to the event, and all the hours and hours of testing and developing and working on the cars, and that everything just worked out on that Sunday. So it's just, a lot of emotions, a lot of feelings, hard to describe really, especially because it was a European Championship, which I knew was going to be extremely difficult to win, considering the speed of my competitors. It was just a lot of emotion at that moment.
Absolutely. So it's quite a spectacle to watch. So I've never been to a Euro before, so it's quite a really good atmosphere all around the pits and in the hall and stuff like that. So there's a real buzz going on. So it's quite impressive. So
sorry, Alex.
Yeah, I think the atmosphere at the Euros is always a little special because it is the Euros. It means something. We're racing for a title, let's say. I mean, it's more than a national, it's more than a club event. So you can really tell there's a special atmosphere in the air, and especially when the event is well organized, it can amplify this atmosphere.
Absolutely.
The vibe before each one of those A mains, it was, if you understand what I mean, it was quieter than quiet.
Oh, I could hear a pin drop, couldn't you?
It went for about 20 seconds before each one. It just felt like it was quiet for 5 miles around, and if anyone had dared cough or say anything, you'd have picked it up. But I guess that's an indication of just what was at stake. I was going to ask you, did relief come into it? Was part of that, because we've all, I'm relatively new to RC, Stu's been around it for a long time, but we've all kind of learned with you through the videos that you do. The tech videos for X-Ray are really good, and you come across as a very kind of cool and calm type character, pretty hard to ruffle, but that sort of that outburst at the end, everyone really felt it, and it almost felt like a big pop, like a relief, almost a release of tension.
Yeah, it's definitely a big relief considering the amount of adrenaline that is involved in racing in these finals, because we all get a little bit nervous, even us who race at the very sharp end. There's a lot of adrenaline. You were talking about the room being very quiet before the start of the A mains. That's a lot of adrenaline being built up among us drivers as well, and it goes on for the duration of the 8 minutes. So yeah, definitely a relief when the tension is off and we're done racing.
I mentioned before the call, as we were chatting around, I used to be involved in motorbikes, and there was a racer, famous racer called Kevin Schwantz, who once said that 90% of racing is between the ears. And you definitely get that, that carries through to this RC sport. And with all of that tension and adrenaline and nerves that you're describing there, do you have any particular ways of managing that? Or do you have ways of managing that are deliberate, or is it just a natural characteristic that you have that you can cope with that?
I think everyone gets nervous. If you care about how you do in a race, you will get nervous. You will have some physiological reactions to the stress, right? I mean, I probably deal with it a lot better now than I did when I was younger. So it's something you learn with experience, with racing a lot throughout the years, and you learn how to deal with your body's reactions. But on the other hand, there's a lot of psychology involved, which you can learn how to think when you drive. Let's say, I mean, it's not good when you think too much. You basically need to do it like when you ride a bike. Like, let's say you think about it, you just do it. But when you look at a final, at a qualifier or a final, 12 scale, it's 8 minutes. In touring car, it's 5 minutes, and 8 minutes makes it a little bit more complex because it actually is quite a long time. 8 minutes. There's a lot of laps you have to turn in 8 minutes, and I always try to divide the race into 3 steps. There's the first step, which is usually the first step of the race where you're able to concentrate the best, because you get into it, you're really focused, you can see where you are in terms of pace, and you can see where your competitors are. The most difficult part for me is always the middle part of the race, because that's when you start to zone out a little bit, you start to lose focus, you start to think about stuff like other factors, right? And then you start to realize that, oh, I need to really focus, and then it's almost over. Then it's towards the end of the race. So for me, the most critical part where you can really tell who's got the best focus, who's got the highest concentration level is the middle part of the race. And in 12 scale, I would consider that to be between the 2nd and the 6th minute.
Oh, okay, yeah. Interesting.
He literally, do I understand that correctly, that you might find that because you've concentrated so hard in the beginning part of that race, after 2 or 3 minutes, you might find you've relaxed into it so much that your mind wanders off to, I don't know, what flavor of ice cream you might have for supper, or, sort of random thoughts, because you're kind of just in that zone, almost watching yourself racing, and you have to consciously bring yourself back.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a physical sport. You don't get physically tired from driving the car, but you get mentally tired. So let's say you can only focus 100% for 2 full minutes, then you need to kind of back off a little to go down to 90 or 95% to be able to give 100% for the last 2 minutes of the run. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. There was a racer here we know quite well, Ollie Jeffries, a English racer, who would talk a lot about diet and mental focus and the things that you're consuming during the day, because it's a long day at a race meeting, and you need to be in a three final race meeting. You need to be at your best at 5 or 6 o'clock, in the evening after a long day. So if you're whacking burgers and chips all day, you're not going to be able to concentrate then. You need to be very focused on those kinds of things. Yeah, it's high level stuff. It's high level stuff.
Yes. Yeah. So I asked you before the call, but I'll ask you again anyway. So, how did Eastbourne compare to other Euros? You've obviously been to a lot of Euros, and obviously Eastbourne is our first ever time we've ever hosted anything like that. So, how did our little club compare to the rest of the world? Sort of thing?
Yeah, so I've been racing many Euros throughout the years in several classes. Of course, 12 scale being one of them. And yeah, the first Euros I went to in 12 scale was probably 2007. The last time I raced in the UK at a Euros was 2010 at Hinckley. And yeah, this year's Euros definitely stands out as one of the best I've been to, especially for 12 scale. You can really tell that the Eastbourne club has really good experience with organizing 12 scale races, because everything was really on point at all. You could also tell by the atmosphere at the event that people really appreciated how well the event was organized and how smoothly everything went.
Good, I'm glad to hear that. I'm sure the Eastbourne crew will be glad to hear that too. So yeah, so we've got Dave Spashit on our side, so he's well-known racer. So I didn't realise David won quite a lot of Euros. I think he's 14 times he's won. I think he said 14. Not just in 12 scale, but in touring car, Pro 10. I think there's a buggy one there as well. I can't remember what he said, but I didn't realise he'd won so many. So that was quite interesting to hear from Dave. So
they always talk about the half whenever they mention Dave. Was that the touring car thing, or was that a 12 scale?
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Yeah, he's got the World Cup title in touring car.
yeah,
That's the one you're referring to.
yeah. They didn't count it, did they, properly? So, yeah.
But the circuit at Eastbourne, the layout that Smash It produced, it looked pretty technical and difficult. It's certainly when he was describing what he was trying to do with the track to make it a challenge for the drivers. And I was struck, actually, it was the third final. So after you'd won and you were able to sort of breathe out and put your feet up, watching that third final when Ollie Payne was leading and Orlowski and Reinhard were chasing him. It was clearly very, very hard to overtake on a layout like that. Is that a typical 12 scale thing at that level, or I do remember there was one pass you made. I forget who it was on, around the sweeper at the end of the start finish straight, which literally got a gasp from the crowd. But that was pretty much the only overtake that we can sort of remember through the meeting. So yeah, I'll be interested to know how the layout compared to other major 12 scale events.
I would say that the layout is a typical British 12 scale layout. So very technical, a lot of corners, quite a long lap time considering the size of the track. So I think that's fine. That's the way it should be for 12 scale. It should be challenging. It shouldn't be too easy and too open of a layout. Then again, of course, it will be more difficult to pass unless the competitor in front of you makes a mistake, which in this case, most of us made mistakes at some point during the 8-minute runs. But yeah, I would say the layout was what I expected from David, considering what he did for the Worlds, considering what is typically used in the UK. So I thought it was a great layout. But yeah, passing was challenging. You almost had to wait for a mistake from the guy in front.
It's definitely a Smash It track, wasn't it? So,
yeah.
But I do mock him quite a lot about his tracks and stuff like that on club meetings. Too many chicanes, they're too tight, all this sort of stuff. So.
I think it's difficult to please everyone. I would say that
yeah.
If you did a club meeting or such where there's more beginners, more hobby level racers, that layout maybe would have been a bit too difficult.
Oh, it'd been brutal, wouldn't it, for newbies?
For club racing,
or
hobbyists, then I would probably prefer a more simple layout. But it was the European Championships, and then a more technical layout is fine in my opinion.
Yeah.
Stu and I were speaking quite a lot off camera during the 3 days about the design of the cars and how that was playing a factor through the Euros and the differences between the Destiny, the Schumacher, the X-Ray, but particularly between the X-Ray that you ended up winning with and the automatics, which were quite different in their layouts. And we understand that you actually brought 2 cars with you to the Euros, one of which was a sort of a prototype that had that more lateral type layout similar to the automatics, but that went back in the box pretty quickly on day one, and reverted to the I don't know if you call it a transverse layout of where the battery sits across the chassis. Could you talk to us a little bit about the difference between those 2 kind of car designs and the characteristics?
Yeah, so going into this event, we had 2 cars that we were testing with and basically trying to decide which one worked better. We had the prototype, which was the inline car, which has the battery down the middle. And we had the transverse car, the cross brace layout, which is our standard configuration. So we were testing both cars during the months leading up to the event. And I ended up testing both cars also on the Friday practice at the Euros. Eventually decided on running the standard configuration, the cross brace. It always felt like it had the widest setup window to me. It always felt the most neutral going around the track. Like the inline car would sometimes be very quick, sometimes it would be off pace. So it felt a lot more risky for me to start the event with the inline car. And basically, the testing on Friday confirmed my anticipation about the inline car.
Yeah, I know. I noticed that. So I noticed in one of the practices you stopped, changed cars halfway through, and to me it looked like the first car was better than the second car. So I guess that's why it went back in the box.
Yeah, it definitely ended up being faster.
Yeah,
the standard configuration.
So it also looked like, I mean, over the weekend, it looked like Schumacher were going to dominate the weekend up until about halfway through. And then there's this massive switch where you sort of came to your own. You were right at the front. I thought, well, hang on, here we go. This is going to get a bit spicy. That's going to be really good. So I assume, did the grip come up and your car livened up, or was that be fair to say? Or
yeah, I would say that I knew that the Schumacher team would be strong, especially during day one, maybe even the first 2 days, because Schumacher team, they have a lot of experience about racing under these kind of grip levels on this kind of carpet. They know exactly how to set up the car for UK grip, let's say.
Yeah.
But I think the grip at the Euros maybe exceeded the grip levels that you have at your national series.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it became higher probably at some point during Saturday, and I think the track and the grip levels really came to our car, to the X-ray car, and when the grip came up, you could see the pace being a lot closer actually between all competitors, not only between myself and the Schumacher guys, but the other competitors came closer as well.
Yeah.
So it all tightened up a bit, which made it more interesting to watch, I'm sure. But yeah, there were some setup changes I made to the car that really helped bring me closer to the pace, and eventually the grip level was the main thing that changed the pace of how things went.
Definitely, yeah, definitely.
It appeared to us. So we sorry, I dropped out there for a moment, but we were talking slightly about the role of an RC driver as a race engineer as well as a racing driver, and that mental focus that you need at the end of the day when you're racing a second or a third final. Now, if you're Lewis Hamilton or Max Verstappen, you've got your race. Yeah, you need that mental focus for the race, but in between time, they go back to a nice luxury motorhome and quite often have a snooze, I understand, and to relax and to be as sharp as they can be for the race. But that's not the case that for an RC racer like yourself. A lot of the work is done the minute you finished your marshalling and you're back at the pits, looking at your car. So I'm curious to know, because you appear to be particularly a gifted engineer as well as racing driver. So I wondered how much of that success you put down to your abilities as a racing engineer alongside being a driver.
Well, I always loved 12 scale for that reason, that if you pay a lot of attention to the car preparation, basically if you're methodical with how you build and set up the car, it can really give you big rewards on the track. So I always liked 12 scale for that reason, that you can really make a difference by setting up the car, and if you do it really well, yeah, it will give you a very good chance of winning. Whereas in other classes, yeah, it makes a big difference, but I would say in 12 scale, attention to detail is more rewarded than in any other class. So yes, it's very motivating to know that you can really make a difference in the pits that you can then showcase on the track.
Are you talking there about the fine tuning and the system of the car and the way that you're adjusting the components of the car? Are you talking about getting the basics right and very thorough preparation that everything is working as it should, or is it down to those fine adjustments?
It's both, actually. I mean, it's first and foremost to make the right call about setup changes during a meeting, knowing what to change and when, and then making sure that the car is in perfect condition before each run, that the tweak is perfect, that all the wheel angles are where they need to be, even tire prep and the body shell being mounted right. Every small detail makes a big difference, and I think it's really a class where those things as a whole can make a huge difference.
And you still enjoy that side of it as much as you said that was something that attracted you to the sport in the first place, that side of it. Is that something you still get a kick out of?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I really love going to races and getting the adrenaline rush and racing at a high level, but I almost equally enjoy going to the track alone with my car, changing things, trying to make it go faster.
I see you do a lot of that. I follow you on Facebook.
Yeah,
I see you at the track a lot, testing and trying different things and whatever. And so, proper dedication to it.
Yeah, so that's almost equally enjoyable for me, and I think 12 scale is a class where you can do a lot of engineering to the car by yourself. Let's say there's a lot of possibilities to design stuff and to change the car more so than in other classes, and you really see a lot of people with background in engineering. They really enjoy 12 scale for that reason.
It's interesting because the other thing that Stu and I are involved in, the social venture RC Vision, we're doing that, but exactly the opposite of that. We're using RC cars and RC racing to engage kids in science and engineering, not to develop skills for RC racing, but because the skills that they learn from making a big group change to a touring car, for example, and feeling what that does to the steering, are the skills that they can then use to get jobs in science and engineering. So it's a pleasure for me to hear you talking about the fact that that's something that you really enjoy about it, because that's part of the sport that we're trying to do. Yeah, we're trying to do a lot with and encourage people to come into it for that reason, not simply the exhilaration of driving a car and racing it.
I think that's very important because you're gonna enjoy RC if you like to work on stuff. I mean, if you like to fiddle with a car and rebuild it, take it apart, these kind of things. If you just like driving, I mean, then you might as well do esports or sim racing or whatever. But if you physically like to work on stuff, then I think RC is perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think you went to Tamworth the week before for like a bit of a practice session up there.
Yeah.
The RC TV crew spoke to you, and I think you said to them you're more motivated now. What did you say? You're more motivated than ever to win the title. So you've raced for a long time. You've got eight times champion now. So what do you put your success down to?
I would say the level of the field, like the competition being stronger than ever. Also, the race being at a venue where I feel that my competitors probably had an advantage.
Yeah,
that was a motivator for you.
Yeah, definitely.
That felt on the back foot. Yeah,
definitely. So I felt that I had to work harder than ever, and it was more motivating than ever in that sense.
Yeah, definitely.
I find that motivation point interesting, that you can still, after as many years as you've been racing at the level that you've been racing at, still have that motivation. I mean, obviously you're still a very young guy, right? Were you 33?
33, yeah.
33. 8 European titles is beyond most people's wildest dreams. I mean, imagine if you offered that to Orlowski right now, he'd probably agree that would be a good achievement to get to 8. What ambitions have you got left? What's the future for you? Do you look up at the horizon and think, that's what I want to be able to achieve?
I mean, achievement-wise, yes, the big dream for any racer at my level is to win a world championship, which I've had the fortune of doing twice, and if there's any chance to win another one, I'll try to do that. But you only get so many chances through your career to win a world championship, because there's only one every 2 years. And especially if you only race 1 or 2 classes, you only get so many chances. So yeah, a goal would be to try and win another world. Another goal would try and race at the highest level for a few more years to maintain this momentum, and yeah, hopefully try and use it for a more long-term career in RC, not only as a driver, but doing something else within the RC industry. So yeah, those are 2 goals basically.
What any thoughts about what those other things might be? Is that related to maybe, you know, passing skills on to young people, or is it designing products and developing your own products? What can you imagine there?
There's many possibilities in my mind. Could either be as a team manager, trying to help other guys to race for our brand, or just R&D, development, testing, maybe even distribution or sales if that opportunity comes. So there's many directions that I have in mind, but we have to see how things develop and what the industry looks like in a few years' time. But basically, I want to use the knowledge and the experience that I have to my advantage at some point in the future.
So I assume you it's full time for you, racing RC cars, developing. That's your full-time job, is it? Am I right in thinking that?
Yeah, I've been doing this full time for 10 years already.
Oh, long,
and it just seems to get busier.
Yeah.
Especially with the rise of social media, and actually being at the forefront of that aspect of doing promotion and stuff. So it's meant a lot more work for us pro drivers to be more present on social media, to do a lot of things outside of the track, which we didn't really have to do as much in the past. So yeah, I not only race a lot, I mean, now we're back to racing as much as we did before the pandemic, but I also have to do a lot of social media work mainly, and customer support.
Yeah.
Teaching us all how to fit body shells and things like that, which we wouldn't be able to do without your videos. Literally.
Yeah, they're
very much appreciated.
They're really good. Yeah, really, really good videos. So, no, definitely.
I'm glad that you enjoyed them.
Yeah, we certainly do. You mentioned the future there. What do you have any view of what RC might look like in 7 or 8 years' time? What's the future for RC perhaps going to look like? What changes might there be, do you think?
I mean, it's really difficult to say, but we need to try and get people away from the computers and try and make them come to the racetracks and to do a sport where you physically meet people and you can socialize and so on. We need to try and sell the sport with what we can offer, which sim racing cannot, for example.
Yeah.
So I think those aspects are very important. Obviously, we need to be focusing on social media to try and sell the sport, try to show people what we can offer.
So do I understand from that you don't necessarily think that we're RC as a sport is quite achieving the potential that it has, that it could be a lot bigger?
I mean, that's what I think, and like we discussed earlier about some video clips on social media getting a huge amount of reach, it shows that there must be a big interest in the sport. It's just that the vast majority of people don't know about it.
Yeah, I think it's getting people to see it, isn't it? To get them involved. Because like I say, we do a lot of TikTok, and the amount of comments we get is, "Oh, where's this? What is this?" And it's like it's amazing that how many the engagement you get from it. Like people got no idea. Like the clubs and stuff, people got like where we are in Halesham down the road. People just they don't know we're there because it's behind a hedge. It's like no one knows we're there. So I think that's the other side of it, isn't it? Promoting your clubs and showing that you're actually there. So
it's difficult with the demise of the high street model shop, I think, which is something that's still being felt. I mean, we did Alex, we did a careers event at a secondary school, which is maybe 300 meters away from the West London racing centre. There's a track that we go to a fair amount. There's just the other side of a sort of small parkland woodland thing. 1,200 girls at that school, and I think we only met one that knew that the track was there. And if you threw a tennis ball, there's a good chance you could reach the track from there. So I think there is incredible potential actually to bring more people in who just, well, we're yet to put an RC car in front of young people and have them not want to pick them up and have a go and enjoy driving them, and mostly enjoy picking up a tool and making it work, or trying to make it work a little bit better. As soon as there's two, it's a race, right? And as soon as it's a race, one person says, hey, how do you make mine go a bit faster? Well, exactly, how do we make it go a bit faster? And then it all starts from there. And then you're 33 and you're an 8 times European champion your life gets taken over by these things. But it is a really great sport, I think.
Yeah, definitely. So we listened to the podcast you did with Aidan, and you spoke a little bit about mod and speedo programming, which is a skill for young people to learn because it's quite a big part of mod. So, do you think mod's on the decline, or do you think?
Yeah, there's no doubt that mod is dying globally in all categories. I mean, in Europe, in the US, in Asia, basically everywhere. People are turning away from mod and they want to race a slower class, in this case, different stock classes. And we're always trying to find a reason why. Are the cars too fast for most people? Are they too difficult to control? Because if it's a question of cost, then stock is often more expensive because you need to invest more in motors and batteries than you do in mod.
Yeah.
Even though the tire wear is slightly higher in mod, you need to invest so much more money if you really want to be competitive in stock. So it's not a cost thing. It's something about the difficulty of the speed of the cars, I guess, or I don't know, not wanting to challenge yourself as much. It's really difficult to pinpoint what the reason is, because I think that 6.5 turn modified class that we use in Europe at the Euros and at the National Series is not out of control fast like an open modified car is. So it is something that you could possibly try and learn if you're decent at stock racing. If you step up the mod, you spend a lot of time on it, you can get good at it. I'm sure it's not that fast that there's only a few of us that can do it. There's certainly more of us that could do it than 2 heats at the Euros.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So
I spoke to Chris Granger about this this very subject recently, and he was explaining that mod racing nowadays is easier than it's ever been. That it wasn't that long ago that it was, that mod racing was really quite hard work with everything that everyone was having to do with the batteries and skimming all the parts. And I mean, I don't know, Chris has been around for donkey's years, and you had all sorts of anecdotes that I couldn't quite understand, but it was making quite a strong case that it's actually, these skills are not as hard as perhaps people that don't do them feel like they might be, and that there's a lot of misnomers or misunderstandings around in the paddock. So we're certainly keen to encourage people to pick it up and have a go. I mentioned to you, we were chatting before, that I used to be involved in motorcycles, and I raced the 250 Grand Prix bike, and the entire reason we did that was because that's what we could see Max Biaggi or Valentino Rossi or whatever racing on the TV. So you wanted to ride one of those, you wanted to try and race one of those, because that's what the very best in the world were doing. And of course, completely useless at it, but you had a go, and that's something that I think we'd like to just be really interested in what you might say to a stock racer that's doing pretty well in 75 blinky touring car or stock 12 scale, and how could we persuade them to step up?
Like we spoke about earlier, the modified class is still considered a premium class, even though it's obviously largely outnumbered by the amount of entries in the stock classes. But that should be a motivation for the guys that are good at stock, that stepping up to mod, potentially that could make you being considered even more achieved racer if you did mod and you did well in it. So it should be a goal if you have ambitions to do well in the sport, to eventually step up and challenge yourself to drive the faster class. And that's all there is to it. I mean, if you're a hobbyist, if you're racing at a club on a weekly basis, you have no ambitions to race at a Euros or such, yeah, stock is perfect for you. But if you're really trying to be competitive and get better and get acknowledged, yeah, then you need to try and step up at some point.
So do you think that puts an onus on people like us who are perhaps organising events to promote that blue ribbon class harder, to make it absolutely clear that that's the top class, that a B final in the mod is better than an A final in stock?
Yes, I think so. And you can clearly see this being a problem. For example, in the United States, they have more classes than any other country. There's some big events that I've been to in the US, they have 10 or 11 classes. And having that spread of drivers onto many different classes, it makes it be just one or two mains per class to begin with. Basically, the difference is there's a lot more trophies they need to hand out. That's the main difference.
Yeah.
And yeah, the premium classes are still really competitive, but if there's not even a B main, I mean, it kind of takes away some of the status of the class, let's say, because like you said earlier, we need to try and convince people that winning the B main in mod is a bigger achievement than making the A in stock. I mean,
yeah,
that's the mentality. That's the change in mentality that we need, I think.
So we're doing. So we run a series called Clear Clubs. So we're doing this thing called Club Mod this year. So it's a 5-turn limit motor, blinky, just to try and get that step up to people to do mods. So we've got 20 odd, I think, booked in.
Yeah,
but we've got quite a good entry for it so far. So we're hoping that's going to give them the step up to go and do nationals and do full-blown mods. So I don't. There's no stepping stone between full-blown mod and stock, is there?
No, I mean, going from stock to open mod, it's probably too big of a step, because having no motor limit also is a bit of a problem. I mean, if you compare to real motorsport, I mean, there's no real racing class where there's no motor limit, like where there's no limitation to the horsepower. Every racing class, even F1, they have a limitation. So having a class where it's completely open, in my opinion, is wrong and outdated. I think we need to look into some motor limits.
Definitely, yeah. So
we found that very difficult to set that limit whilst mod is open, and whilst some of those things are open, because if you take a 10.5 turn motor, but then you can crank it right the way up on the speedo, is not going to be a huge amount of difference to a much smaller turn motor, but with not so much on the speedo. So it's those things, those technicalities are a little bit tricky. But I think what Stu said earlier about that tuning the electronic speed controller as part of the engineering exercise of being an RC racer, I think is a really important thing that would be a tragedy to lose, because those skills are so highly relevant to the world outside of RC, not just motorsport, but all of the industries of the future. That if we're thinking about growing the sport and having more young racers come up and try and be Alex Hagberg and 8-time European champion, then having those skills involved is surely part of it.
Yes, I agree. Especially considering how complex the modern speed controllers are. We should try and utilize those aspects to it.
Yeah.
Definitely. So, what's your, obviously you got the Wales? Is it the Wales this year?
Yeah, we had the Worlds in 12 scale in December in Florida in US.
So what are you concentrating on now? Is it back to touring car now, and then nearer the time go back to 12 scale?
Yeah, so through the summer is basically only touring car, outdoors. We're gonna have to do a little bit of testing with 12 scale throughout the summer as well, because we want to work on some updates to the current car. So we're gonna have to do some development work during the summer, but just testing, no racing. And then, yeah, the main focus will be touring car probably until then.
You got a full calendar. What's your plans this on the touring car scene this year?
So the main focus during the summer is the Euros warm up. We have a couple of XRS events, which they are X-ray events.
Yeah.
X-ray sponsored events. We have national series. And I mean, it's fairly busy, but actually not as busy as the winter season. The winter season gets more busy because there's touring car and 12 scale, and there's actually more international events through the winter season in Europe.
That's good. So
we will be watching. We will be watching. Just back to the Euros a little bit. You very kindly gave us one of your shells. I think you can confirm publicly that this is one of the ones that you raced with at the Euros, and you signed it. I think, Stu, we got a picture of Alex signing it.
Yeah.
So talking about young people racing, we're going to auction this shell alongside some others that we had donated to us to help a young racer who races with us, Tyler Standing, who's 10, who has a condition that means that he needs a new powered wheelchair. We're hoping to raise some money for him to get that chair so he can carry on racing with us. So for people who are watching, we're going to put a link over the coming days to how you can bid to win Alex's shell. We might put it in a nice frame with a signed picture. But we've also got this shell we're going to auction, which is the one, for those of you that saw the Lewis Hamilton RC Vision film on Sky Sports, which was on Sky Sports in the UK and in Germany, and it's still cranking up the views on YouTube. I understand they put it on pretty much every other Grand Prix, which is cool. This is the shell that Lewis drove, and he signed it for us there. So we're going to add this shell into that auction and hopefully raise some money for Tyler. So thank you very much, Alex, for helping with that. It's we certainly think it's a really good cause.
Yeah, I'm happy to participate in that, of course.
And I think our time is pretty much up, but it's been fantastic. Fantastic speaking to you. Have you got any questions there, Stu, from your mum?
No, I haven't. No, just massive congratulations again, Alex, and thanks so much for taking part in this interview with us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Thanks to the Eastbourne Club for the great organization of the race. Thank you to ddrc.tv for everything you do for RC racing and the industry. And thanks for inviting me to this interview.
Absolutely. Do you want to thank your sponsors? That's the thing, isn't it? You have to thank your sponsors.
That's Aidan Burke's thing. Is that Aidan's thing?
That's Aidan Burke does that.
I can if you.
Yeah, please do.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, give a shout out. Definitely.
If you give me the chance to. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, X-Ray is my main sponsor, is the car manufacturer.
A lot of them on there, aren't they?
Hoodie Tools, Hobby Wing Speed Controllers and Motors, Nostram Batteries, Sanwa Radios and Servos, Hiroseiko Screws, Avid Bearings, TQ Wires, Hot Race Tires, Loxon Stickers, 8 Paint Jobs, Meebo Sport, and Monaco RC, which are RC shops. I hope I didn't forget anyone, but yeah.
No, it was cool seeing you with moving your batteries to Nosram. I like the black t-shirts and design with Nosram. That's really quite cool.
They're really stealthy looking. Yeah, really cool.
Yeah, really smart. What's P1 brand? What do they do?
So that's a friend of mine from Los Angeles. He's art designer. He used to do some racing inspired artwork in the past.
Cool.
He did some apparel, some merchandise, and basically just a friend of mine, and I like to support his brand.
Nice.
We'll have to look that up. That sounds really cool. That sounds really cool. Awesome. Thank you very much, Alex. We're going to shut down the stream now, and we'll speak to you again very soon. But thanks, great for all the racing was fantastic. We thoroughly enjoyed watching you win. On to the next one. Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you very much. Good night. Bye-bye.